listening to Deathwaves on WGMUradio.com. This is the first ever Zoom recorded interview that we are doing, so I'm actually really happy to be doing this. And my first guest for this Zoom interview is, believe it or not, the founding member of Motörhead, the one, the only, Mr. Lucas Fox. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, mate, and this is a real pleasure to be speaking to your listeners. I hope you're all safe there, out there, and please mask up and rock out in this rock down situation.
Oh, man.
It's lovely to be talking to you, and all of you gals and guys out there. I hope you're well and happy and having a good time, because let's face it. Okay, everyone's going, oh, this pandemic's awful. But I mean, in Europe, just an example, historic example. In 1945, at the end of the Second World War, there were 35 million displaced people in Europe, and we managed to get through that.
Yeah.
We managed, all the deaths and all the awful things in the Second World War. I mean, 2,000 years of warring around Europe, and we've managed to somehow come through it. We'll get through this as well. But we have got to sort of shape up this mask thing. I don't know how much it's advertised in the States. I know one side seems to be a bit in denial of all this.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I live. Yeah.
But in the end, it's a very straightforward thing. If you look at Japan and the Asian countries who wear masks a lot without the pandemic, they have a much lower rate of transmission of flu and common cold. So it's really, this thing is transmitted by spit,
Yeah,
and if you sneeze, I'll do a Michael Caine on you. Not a lot of people know this, but if you sneeze, that sneeze is going to go more than 10 meters. That's like 35 or 40 feet.
Yes.
And it's going to spread out just like buckshot.
Yes.
So it's going to spread out. So when you sneeze, it's going to hit like 10 people.
Yes.
And if you're in a crowd, it's probably going to hit 20 or 30 people. So that's why the mask is so simple. Gotcha. And anyway, I don't want to go on about that because we're not here to talk about health issues, but I care about people. And the only way we're going to slow this damn thing down is by being a bit careful about each other,
Of course, no, and that does make sense, and it's important to be mindful of the people around you during such a time, because you never know where everyone's been at. You never know.
Well, yeah, and even with the testing and stuff, you get tested, and an hour later you bump into somebody, bang, you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So well. Anyway, let's get on with the interview. It's great to be here. It's a Sunday afternoon in Paris here, where I've been based for 32 years.
Nice.
I'm based here because the train network across Europe is so good. I'm just down the road from a train station called Gare du Nord, the northern train station in Paris. Okay. And from there, in 2 hours, 10 minutes, I'm in central London. And I'm only 20 minutes walk from the damn thing. Also, I can be in Brussels in like an hour and a half. I can be in Amsterdam in 2.25 hours. I can be in south of France in Marseille in 3.5 hours. I mean, it's just high-speed rail. It's wonderful. I don't really take planes very much. Apart from obviously doing transatlantic, but trains are a wonderful form of transport. Because if you haven't missed your train, then you've got uninterrupted pleasure for however long it is. You can go to the bar, you can work on your laptop, you can sleep, you can drink whatever it is you want to do. Yeah. Apart from smoke dope, But I mean,
Is it how's the situation for that over there in France? Is it fully legalized, or is it like
no? It's still completely hard-assed here.
Wow.
I mean, and they've actually increased fines and meant that basically you get caught with a joint in France. It's just that you can be hit by a policeman, not hit literally because they don't do that too much here.
No.
But you can be hit with a automatic fine of like 130 euros, which is like $130 or something.
Oh, that's way more. That's probably $140 because of the tax, because of the conversion rates.
Yeah, but so you can be hit. It's just like a parking ticket. So you haven't even got to go to court or any of that stuff. It's just like a parking ticket. Bang, you're done. You're busted.
Wow.
So that's really not healthy. In Britain, where I come from, all the police commissioners, who are the equivalent of your police chiefs, all of them, right across the British Isles, went to the government and said, look, we haven't got the manpower to handle this. And people who smoke dope are basically very friendly. They usually want to just stay at home and watch DVDs and jerk off. And and they rarely drink because they're like quite purist about it in general.
Yeah.
And they don't drink and smoke. They don't seem to drive too much. You know, so in which case it's not a problem. But if we have to bust them and put them in jail, then we are creating another problem, because jail is one of the big universities in the world to teach you how not what to do, you know.
Of course.
So I mean, you know, I've got nothing against people coming out of jail, but it's one of those problems that in jail you learn an awful lot of stuff that you only need to know if you want to keep down that path, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're here to talk about music and little old me, maybe.
So of course. That's why I asked you to appear on this. No, but in all seriousness though, for those that are out of the loop, Mr. Fox right here, or Lucas as he prefers to be called, he was a founding member of Motörhead and played on several tracks that would go on to appear on the first Motörhead record, and he also played in the London punk rock band Warsaw Pakt. Like I said, so for Motörhead, I remember reading on. I'm gonna actually go off the Wikipedia page for a second. I remember reading on the Wikipedia page for you that you basically started Motörhead after picking up Lemmy from the London airport after he was sacked from Hawkwind in 1975.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
How'd that, so explain me all of that, because that is when I read that, that blew my mind.
Well, it depends where you want to set the start button for that story.
Just tell me everything. I would love to
you want me to reveal all, don't you?
Well, nay, not all, but just
what do you mean not all? I'm sure they want all the gory details.
Well,
and quite right too.
if you want all the gory details, you can lay them on me.
Okay, just a question. I know that America's quite a conservative country from some ways.
Yeah.
How is your radio regarding swear words?
Oh, hey, thank you for asking me that. I never actually managed to tell you. Keep it to a minimum. If not, don't swear. My radio station, unfortunately, is really strict on that.
Fine. Okay, I just wanted to check that because I tend to swear a lot because that's part of my nature. Not because it's blasphemous or because it's just I just think they're great words and they're very expressive.
Yes, they are.
You know. But I just wanted to check that because I'm very sensitive to those sorts of things, and I don't want this radio program to be constantly going blah 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 beep blah 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 beep blah 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 beep, which is a real pain, you know.
Yeah, of course.
It's a pain in the proverbial.
Yes, it is. No, you're right.
Not to name something which is an obvious part of our anatomy.
No, of course. Something.
So anyway, back to the question. Okay, so yes. Lemmy got kicked out of Hawkwind. Lemmy was in Hawkwind for 4 years.
Yes, he was.
And it was an accident that he got into Hawkwind in the first place. Lemmy was living with a mate of mine, a very close mate of mine afterwards, Dick Mick. And Dick Mick, interesting enough, Dick, like your strange president Richard Nixon called Dickie, Tricky Dickie, right? Dick is a short nickname for a person called Richard. So, Dick Mick was called Richard. Sorry, he was told. Yes, he was called Richard Davies. Right. There was another Richard Davies in his class at school. So, to avoid confusion, they both became Dick Davies.
Wow.
And my mate Dick Mick was Richard Michael Davies, and of course the Mick Jagger. The shortened version of Michael is Mick.
Yes.
So of course Dick Mick became Dick Mick, Duck Muck. So that's Dick Mick. Dick Mick and Lemmy were living in a squat in Ladbroke Grove, this wonderful place, which is a bit like Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. There were only two places like this in the world, possibly Soho in New York as well.
Okay.
But as far as rock and roll goes, this is where we all lived. We all lived in this strange community of kind of hippies and ne'er-do-wells and a wonderful, wonderful Jamaican community.
Nice.
Because it was a Jamaican front line. And and so the community was basically a whole mix. It was a very, very poor housing situation. I mean, when I say poor, it was the same thing as Haight-Ashbury. Haight-Ashbury was all fallen down.
Wow.
And you could pick up apartments for absolutely nothing. And I'm talking about renting because nobody had enough money to buy.
Of course.
Same here. But I mean, we're talking about street after street after street of ran down buildings with peeling wallpaper and mold, mold on the walls and stuff, and overgrown and broken windows and boarded up windows because nobody could afford to replace the window. And it was just, but it was wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And also pastel coloured houses. And originally they're beautiful houses, which have now been reverted to their original form by gutting them and redoing them. But therefore, Dick, Mick and Lemmy were living in a squat in Ladbroke Grove.
Okay.
And one day, Dick Mick was in Hawkwind. Now, Dick Mick, very interesting character. He bought himself a oscillator. And this is, I mean, let's cast our minds back to the olden days in the 20th century.
Yeah, of course.
And there we are before synthesizers.
Yes.
And Dick Mick was the first person, as far as I know, in the world to start using these oscillators to get this space rock sound. And anybody who doesn't know Hawkwind, well worth discovering. An amazing band.
Of course.
And Hawkwind, therefore.
Hall of the Mountain Grill, man.
Hall of the Mountain Grill. And of course, the Mountain Grill was our local cafe.
Oh, wow. So that's where it comes from. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it didn't have a hall. It just had a door straight into the cafe.
Wow.
It was on Portobello Road, which is our local market. Long little road that goes all the way through Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill Gate.
Okay.
And so the Mountain Grill was in fact a greasy spoon where you bought your fish and chips and your saveloys and all the musicians used to meet there.
Okay.
So Hall of the Mountain Grill sounds incredibly. You immediately have it in your mind. You think of these eerie castles in a strange space sci-fi land.
Yes.
Of course, it's a greasy chip shop. So anyway, Dick Mitzing Hawkwind has been there for a while, and he's a speed freak, and so's Lemmy.
Yeah, of course.
And they're both living together quite happily, dealing a bit of speed and taking speed. And Lemmy's a rhythm guitarist.
Yes.
He's not a bass player. And he was a rhythm guitarist in the Rocking Vicars,
yes, he was.
Sam Gopal, etc. All these other bands. And he was also one of Hendrix's roadies, incidentally.
Yes, he was.
Which you probably read about.
Yes.
And not a lot of people know this again, Michael Caine. Not a lot, but Hendrix used to have him go and get his deals of acid.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Lemmy was Hendrix's acid dealer. And he'd go and pick up his acid for him, and therefore what would happen was Hendrix would say, "Hey Lemmy, you want to go and pick up some acid for me?" Because he's a real sweet guy, Hendrix. And Lemmy goes, "Yeah, all right. How much do you want?" And he goes, "Pick me up about 8 or 10 tabs." And he'd come back with 8 or 10 tabs, and Hendrix would swallow 7 of them and insist that Lemmy took the other 3 immediately. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about serious, mind-blowing experience. You experience?
Damn.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that joke.
So Lemmy had been seriously out of his box quite a lot. Anyway, so there you have Dick, Mick, and Lemmy in this Ladbroke Grove squat, and Dick Mick's off doing these gigs everywhere with Hawkwind. And at one point, Dick Mick comes back and he says, "Here, Lemmy, you need to, come along on the bus. We're missing a musician. Come along on the bus." So Lemmy gets on the bus to go to this first gig with Hawkwind, and on the bus, they turn around and say, "Well, you're going to be playing bass." Silence. Lemmy goes, "Well, I've only got me rhythm guitar, yeah." And Del Detmar, who's one of the band, who's driving the bus, turns around and says, "No problem, Lemmy. I've got a bass in the back. It's off now, whatever, There's 35 quid bass." And that's how Lemmy started playing bass. Now, what's interesting about this long rambling story is that Lemmy's bass style starts from this rhythm guitar attitude,
Yes, it does.
playing chords.
Yep.
And then picking the chords.
Yep.
And then we flash across, if you will be so patient, dear listeners, dear friends, gals and guys, and we go across to Boris the Spider. Boris the Spider. Okay, with the bass sound on that. Dum diddle dum diddle dum diddle dum dum. And you're talking about fucking lead, excuse me, beep, a lead bass, okay? Therefore, it's almost a lead guitar, lead bass style mixed with a rhythm guitar. And that becomes Lemmy's style. That becomes Lemmy's hallmark. Okay?
Yep.
Therefore, Lemmy starts playing bass, but in a strange and different way that most people don't do.
Yes.
Apart from the Ox, Entwistle, who's also called the Ox, wonderful. John Entwistle, very tall man, brilliant, a complete clothes fanatic.
Gotcha.
Again, a clothes fanatic. He spent all his money on buying clothes. It's very strange.
Wow.
Anyway, so and of course, you know, there we have it. Now, Lemmy and I have been hanging out together for a long time before he got kicked out of Hawkwind. And because I met Lemmy at the Speakeasy. Now, the Speakeasy, the famous, world-famous Speakeasy, was the club where all musicians went to.
Gotcha.
And at the age of, the tender age, I started drumming at the age of 9, right?
Nice.
And at 9 years old, in one of the worst winters that Britain has ever known, in the snow, I go door to door we're out in the suburbs in Chiswick, which is near Hammersmith Odeon, in fact, funny enough.
Oh, nice.
So I've been plaguing my parents for a drum kit for like months, with little signs hanging up all over the house saying, I must have a drum kit. You remember, I need a drum kit. My birthday's coming soon. I need a drum kit. I must have a drum kit. And I'm plaguing it and pissing my parents and everybody off, you know. And we haven't got much money at the time. So they advanced my birthday from the Monday, 25th of February, to the Saturday, so that I can enjoy what I'm getting as a present.
Yeah.
And I really excited on that Saturday morning. I must have got up really early for the first time in my life, apart from staying up all night. I'm a night bird.
Yeah.
I like to be up at night.
Yeah.
And so I raced down the staircase in our little house in Chiswick, and go into the dining room. And there on the dining room table is one box. I look at it and go, and I'm looking around the dining room. Where's the rest of it? Right? And so I open, you know, wrapping paper all over the table and stuff, you know, in a frenzy of a 9-year-old frenzy.
Yeah.
And I open it up, and it's a lovely snare drum with a little stand and one tiny little splash cymbal. Splash cymbals are called splash because they go. Psst,
yeah,
psst,
it's
a great sound. Great.
Yes.
I've got some over there. I don't know. Where are you?
Right
there's my drum kit over here.
Gotcha.
Okay, I've got this lovely Gretsch drum kit. Okay. How are you going to see this?
I need to see this.
You need to see this. Hang on. Let's put some light on the subject.
No worries.
And therefore, now we're looking at me. Now you're looking at, there's the drum kit.
See, that looks very nice. All the cymbals look really nice on it.
They're Zildjians. They're beautiful. And this is...
There you go.
That's a splash cymbal. They're all Zildjians, you see. It's a lovely Gretsch kit. Very small kit, but it's great because this house is actually soundproofed.
Nice.
So, which is great, both for drumming and for girlfriends.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not too racy for you, is it?
No, it's not. No, goodness.
Okay, well, because this is going to get a bit racy in various areas. So anyway, there we are. Me in my dining room, open up the snare drum. I set up the snare drum with this tiny little stand and a little stand for the cymbal. And I set it up. And so I race back up the stairs, and my father and mother are still in bed. And I go up to my father and say, thanks so much. This is real sweet. Where's the rest of it? My father, who's kind of very dry, got these cold steel blue eyes and a rather frightening person.
Yeah.
He wears a monocle, and he just lets the monocle drop, and his paper goes down, his monocle drops out of his eye and goes, if you're serious about it, you'll find a way. And pops his monocle back in. And So they are just like so pissed off with me that you know, for months I've been playing them. We haven't got much money, and that's all they could afford. So a
Yeah.
snare drum is a good start.
Yeah.
So anyway, so if you're serious about this, you'll find a way. So quick as a flash, into the old brain, I raced back down the stairs into the kitchen, opened the cupboard doors under the sink, you know, where the water is.
Yep.
And grab we don't have rubber in those days, or plastic. So I mean, we have rubber, but it's not a rubber bucket. It's a metal bucket.
Yeah.
So I grab a big iron bucket, and sponges haven't arrived in Europe then either.
Wow.
So it's like a rag, you know, like a dishcloth.
Yeah.
And some soap, and off I go. Put on some Wellington boots, which are these big rubber boots.
Nice.
Over my pajamas, and a pair of jeans over my pajamas, and a woolly jumper, and a woolly hat, and nice warm coat, and some gloves. Nice. And off I go into the snow. Bok, can I wash your car, please? At the age of 9, right? And they're also looking around, going, but it's snowing. You know? It doesn't matter. I've got to earn some money. I've got to buy a drum kit. You know.
Yeah.
And so half of them like took, you know, they gave me a couple of pennies.
Yeah.
And said, "Oh, go on, get out of here. You know, come back when there's no snow. You'll be able to wash the car then."
Of course.
So after about 3 or 4 cars and 3 or 4 neighbours, I have enough money to buy my first pair of drumsticks.
Nice.
So I go back into the house completely drenched, and with the one car I did wash, it's like cold water running down into my armpit. I will never forget that feeling. Horrible.
Oh,
because cars were high in those days.
Yeah.
And plus you had the snow, and I was very small.
Yes.
So, you know, a 9-year-old. And so anyway, cut a long story slightly shorter. Race back into the house. You know, by then it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I say, "Mum, we've got to go to King Street music stores. This is where all the drummers go to buy their kit." And so off we go. And the last client I've got says, "Here, son, when you buy your first pair of drumsticks, you make sure you roll them up and down the counter to see if they're straight or not." And I go, "Okay, got it. I don't know why, but I'm going to do this, right?" So I've got the plan.
Yeah.
And I've got these little piles of pennies in my hands, right?
Yeah.
And so off we go to King Street music stores, and we open the door. It goes cling, 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 with the little bells, you know, little bells so that the door's opening.
Of course.
Cling, 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 cling. And we walk in, and to my right there's a guy with long dark hair and a big nose.
Of course.
And on my left, not as long as yours, a bit shorter, but in those days it was long, because it was pre-hippie, remember?
Of course.
I'm 9, so it's like 62, 63.
Okay, so it's before like Woodstock and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, way before that.
Okay,
way before. You know, I mean, so anyways, there's the guy with a little guy, a bit taller than myself, on my right, and then on my left is a slightly bigger guy with long dark hair and a big nose as well. And behind him seems to be to me as a youngster, a really old guy, right? And anyway, so I'm rolling my sticks up and down the counter. I've got my little piles of pennies.
Yep.
All lined up perfectly to exactly the right amount of money, and not one penny less, and not one penny more, because to buy my first pair of drumsticks. Okay. And these 3 geezers standing around me are looking at me sort of with a little smile on their face. They're looking at each other and going, "Oh yeah, here goes another one." Here's another one on the sunken trail to misery.
Oh, and, no.
No, joke. British sense of humour, come on.
Gotcha.
And so anyway, then Mick and Keith turn up and take away the old geezer at the back. It's Charlie Watts. Okay. The drummer of Rolling Stones. And then Paul McCartney and John Lennon turn up and take away Ringo, who's standing on my left.
Whoa!
And then Pete Townsend and the Ox, the bass player, turn up and take away Keith Moon, who's standing on my right. So there I am at the age of just 10. In fact, I'm actually 9 because it's a Saturday. I'm not even 10. And I'm standing in a room full of 3 of the most iconic drummers of the future. But at that point, they're still playing very small gigs.
Wow.
Charlie Watts has just joined the band. I mean, we're at a real cusp point.
Wow.
So that kind of sealed my fate. That's nothing. That's nothing. But anyway, so there we are, and we'll get back to Lemmy in a second. And so off I go, and for about 2 or 3 years, I spent a lot of time washing cars, and finally managed to get together this higgledy-piggledy, misshapen kit of different makes and different colours and all the rest of it. But I'm starting to drum. At the age of 13, I'm in blues bands. I'm still at the French school, the lycée in London, which was much less posh than it is now.
Okay.
And although we didn't have much money, they managed to scrabble enough money to pay for this, which wasn't that expensive relatively in those days.
Okay.
And they wanted to have little European kids that spoke another language, which I thought was a jolly good idea.
Yeah.
And didn't have a uniform either, so it's well cool.
Nice.
Anyway, so there we are. Your friend of mine, Lucas, who's now drumming away. And by about the age of 17, I finally finished. I managed to get out of the lycée, having done all my exams 1 year earlier, because I can't stand being there anymore.
Gotcha.
And I just want to get out there because I really want to drum. And therefore I start answering ads in the back of the Melody Maker, which is our equivalent of not Billboard, but one of those. It's like a music mag.
Gotcha.
And at the back, there's all these, looking for a drum at no breadheads, no time wasters type ads.
Of course.
and so I'm replying to these and starting to go to auditions, and I'm getting all the ones I don't want, and I can't get the ones I do want. So I start realizing, I'm going to have to break this circle. So
Gotcha.
for about 3 months, I replied to every single ad that was in the Melody Maker.
Gotcha.
And went religiously to all these auditions. And finally, I became hardened enough.
Gotcha.
I didn't give a flying proverbial as to what take me or leave me. This is what you got.
Yeah.
And I started getting the drumming gigs I wanted.
Yeah.
So there I am, just turned 18, and in fact 17, and I go to the Speakeasy, this famous club, because I know that in order to get into this world. A lot of people, ask this question: How did you get into Motörhead? You're pretty much an unknown drummer with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
How did you get into Motörhead? And this is basically, I went into the Speakeasy, lied about my age because I never had a baby face. So at the age of 12, I was already looking like an adult.
Nice.
And used to go to the Marquee and stuff, and see. I saw everybody at the Marquee. I saw John Mayall's Blues Breakers with Eric Clapton, and also with Jeff Beck, and also with the guy who joined the Stones replacing Brian Jones, whose name escapes me just right now.
Wow.
Mick Taylor. I saw all the bands, the Yardbirds there.
Oh, wow.
With Keith Relf and Jimmy Page.
That's
I
a throwback.
Later on, I saw Led Zeppelin there in front of 300 people.
Wow.
When Led Zeppelin were just coming about.
Okay, so when they were like a club band before they blew up in popularity and whatnot?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, man. That's such a trip to see bands like on the come up like that, like just before they become like, because I'm 23, so I look at, not to be that guy, but I look at everything with the historical perspective. So when I hear stuff like this, it always blows my mind. It always.
Well, of course, and almost every band started off small.
Yes, of course.
This is the thing one forgets,
Yeah.
And this is the sort of down to earth Lucas approach to things. Is that you meet the same people on the way up as on the way down.
Yeah.
So you might as well be respectful and nice.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's just talking selfishly.
Yeah.
Apart from you need to be respectful and nice anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I believe in living. But as a gentleman. So anyway, so I lied about my age, got my membership card for the Speakeasy, and still having not much money. In fact, almost no money. Therefore, I'm going to the Speakeasy 2 or 3 nights a week, and drinking 1/2 of beer, and making that last all night.
Nice.
Until, nice, yes. But I'm starting to learn the lingo, because suddenly in the 60s, in the 60s, everything's changed. The language has changed. The way of living has changed. The way everyone's dressing completely different from each other. The Speakeasy, you got Keith Moon standing on a table with a bottle of cognac in his hand. You got Oliver Reed, the actor, standing next to him. In the corner, you got maybe Status Quo, and in another corner, you got Thin Lizzy.
Oh my God.
Surrounded by girls. You got all sorts of people coming in and out, Robert Plant, etc., etc. This is a speakeasy of the late 60s, early 70s.
Wow.
So this is the place you need to be if you can get in there. And I was lucky enough to bluff my way in there. And so this was, if you like, the turning point, which meant that I could actually get into this world. From my strange education in a French lycée, which had nothing to do with the music business, and also meant I was a bit of an odd one out because I was completely bilingual and bicultural. And the buy-in's there for the moment, but I'll never say never.
Yeah, of course.
And, well, I don't know about, of course, I could be bisexual as well, but I'm not. And I've got nothing against anybody who's LGBTQ, etc. All for it, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be able to do what they want to do. You know, that's as far as I'm concerned. It's your own life, live it.
Yep.
To the full. This is not a rehearsal. We're only here once.
Yes, exactly.
Until you know, proven wrong and coming back as a, I don't know, as a frog or
if you believe it,
or the locust or something.
Yeah, if reincarnation is your thing. But yeah, so you met so did you meet Lemmy at this speakeasy or?
I met Lemmy at the speakeasy. Like 4 or 5 years later.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I was already gigging a lot. And at the age of 20, I was in a strange little band called W.H. Pierce Band.
Okay.
W.H. Pierce Band was basically an R&B, rhythm and blues. That's not R&B like rap R&B. This is rhythm and blues like it was then, right?
Okay.
So it's rhythm and blues. It's blues plus rhythm. So it becomes Yardbirds, early Led Zeppelin. All of those bands were rhythm and blues bands.
Okay.
And so I've lost my thread just a second. So yeah, met Lemmy there, but at the age of 20, I was already in a band, W.H. Pierce Band, and we were looked after. We were under the wing of Pink Floyd.
Wow!
And they were lending us their prototype. Very interesting for those who are into this sort of stuff. For you geeks of equipment out there, these are the first Martin bass bins.
Wow!
Dave Martin became the worldwide. Some of the best PAs and sound systems in the world.
Gotcha.
And Pink Floyd had their prototypes, and then they started building these amazing PA systems.
Gotcha.
Because up until then, it was like what they're called WEM, and you had like a 4x10-inch speaker column, and you had hundreds of them to try and make up enough sound to combat the sound of the crowd and the volume, because the Beatles couldn't hear themselves on stage. And the crowd couldn't really hear them either. I saw the Beatles loads of times when I was like 12, 13 at Hammersmith Odeon, amongst others.
Nice.
I saw the Stones there loads of times. I saw Tina Turner there. I saw Ray Charles there. Stevie Wonder there.
Wow.
Who else did I see at Hammersmith Odeon? Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh my God.
All the blues stuff. Including all the Fats Dominoes and people like that. Oh, it's great. Anybody who came to Britain usually passed through Hammersmith Odeon, and 9 times out of 10 we went.
Okay.
At a very early, 12, 13, 14 years old. So back to W.H. Pierce Band with these bass bins and these PA stacks. We also had Allen and Heath mini console, like a 24-channel console. Is one of the first miniaturized consoles. Great.
Sure.
And so we were kind of looked after by Pink Floyd's stuff, and we ended up being produced by Roger Waters and Nick Mason.
Wow.
So we spent a week at Nick Mason's house in Islington, North London.
Okay.
Being produced by Roger Waters and Nick Mason. It was the week that Dark Side of the Moon went to the top 10 in America.
Wow.
So they were suddenly overnight millionaires,
Yeah. Which band were you in at the time that they were recording? What was the band name?
W.H. Pierce Band.
Gotcha.
But I don't believe any recordings exist. Now, funnily enough, there was a bass player called Dave Ambrose. Dave Ambrose is also a close mate of mine, even now.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I'm in touch with a lot of people that I played with 40 years ago, and Dave Ambrose was the bass player in Brian Auger's Trinity. For anybody who is fans of a wonderful series called Absolutely Fabulous. Okay, Absolutely Fabulous has a generic song, wheels on fire rolling down the road, this wheel shall explode. That's Brian Auger's Trinity. So he's in that band, which is a big band at the time, worldwide hit. And he was also in Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Gotcha.
Where his audition to get into Crazy World of Arthur Brown was Arthur Brown put him in another room, gave him a tab of acid, and waited 45 minutes for the acid to kick in, and then said, "All right, come in and play. If you get through this, you'll be in our bass player."
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy times, you know. This is the sort of thing that went on, because as far as that, a bit like Hawkwind took a lot of acid.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, I know, like, when they were writing music, like, they were taking acid left and right, and, well, Lemmy was a speed freak. He wasn't that much of an acid guy.
That's exactly right. Hence, we'll come to that in a minute, if you will.
Yes.
So yeah, the first time I met Lemmy was at the Speakeasy.
Yeah.
And therefore I got quite a lot of experience and was gigging quite a lot and doing a lot of studio sessions. Yeah. And he was obviously in Hawkwind and recording. I think the Hall of the Mountain Grill was what they recorded in 74.
Yes.
It was in 74 I met Lemmy.
Yes.
And so we were hanging out together, probably also because I had a car and I was useful. He didn't drive. Therefore, it's much cheaper for him to have his own personal taxi driver.
Of course.
And so I was kind of 22 years old and he was 27, 28 or something.
Of course.
At the time. What were we in 74? He was born in 45 or 44. 45, wasn't he?
45. It was.
So he was like 29 or something, I suppose, at the time. 7 years older than me. Yeah. And yeah, it's about right. I was born in 53, so something like that. And you can see my maths is really hot, isn't it? But we had the same obsessions. We had the same musical taste. And I can remember the first conversations we had. I mean, for a start, he had this wonderful sense of humor.
Yes.
I don't know if I can tell this joke over air. It's a bit rude. No, I won't. So we won't take the risk. Okay. Anyway, so we had the same sort of stupid Monty Python style humor.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay.
None of it's Mr. Bean. I love Mr. Bean, but I prefer Blackadder.
Yeah.
It's all sort of like Fifth Degree and stuff. Humor, like really wacky and out the
of course,
off the wall.
It's very outlandish left field type humor.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we had the same sense of humor, musical taste. So the first night we spent together, the first time we met, we spent the night up all night on speed, and went back to his place. I think it was the first night, might have been the second night. I think it was the second. It was the second night. It was the night after.
It gets a little hazy.
Strangely enough, maybe I've got Alzheimer's, old timers disease, but I've got an incredibly clear imagery and memory of most of it. Okay. Obviously, there's massive patches that I can't remember at all. I mean, how much can you remember of what you're like 23? Yeah. How much can you remember of what you were when you were 11?
Yeah, of course.
So it's even a normal person is going to forget all sorts of blocks of memory, and memory is very, very selective as well. Of course.
Yes, it is. It is.
So anyway, I got a very, very clear memory, and I'm writing my book at the moment, which is great fun because it's the first time I'm actually plunging into my past, because I've always spent my life living going forward.
Yes.
I've never actually thought about what happened behind, you know.
Yes.
So there we are at the Speakeasy, at the bar of Speakeasy, and we get to know each other really well, really fast, and we got the same. He also rode horses. I ride horses. His father was a vicar, you know, of the church.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My grandfather was a vicar, so we both had to put up with these sermons all the time. Okay. You know, even when it wasn't in church, we were being sermoned. You know, you know, you shouldn't do this and you should do that, all that stuff, which we hated. Yes, and so we had that in common. We had the Second World War, which I studied, not in school, but just like passionate, very passionate. I mean, I was only born 8 years after the Second World War finished.
Okay.
Therefore, everywhere in London, where I was brought up, in the centre of London, before we moved to Chiswick, and even in Chiswick, every single street had a bomb crater in it.
Wow.
Well, the Blitz, you know, we forget the Blitz in 1940.
Yeah.
People were dying 1,000 a night.
Wow.
And we had virtually uninterrupted for 60 days.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Of the Blitz,
that's
you know.
Right. Yeah,
so you know, a lot of people forget this, but this also explains something about British bands. But I'll go back to that in a minute, if you will. So there we are, Lemmy and I, obsessed by the Second World War and history in general, but mainly the Second World War. And also, we also have this thing where, how can you put this? There was so much hero worship. And this is, psychologically a whole country which has stood alone, right? Britain had stood alone against Nazi Germany, and the whole of Europe had been invaded.
Yes.
And my mother was involved in the Air Force.
Yes.
And was on the base that sent all the resistance members to Europe.
Gotcha.
She was a commandant of that base at a very young age.
Okay.
And it was the most secret base in Britain.
Gotcha.
And so even she said, look, in 1940 we were convinced we were going to lose. However much Churchill was going, oh well, no, we'll fight them on the beaches and all this. Quite right.
Yes.
But in your heart of hearts, you're going, well, our armies spread all over the world in these strange colonies that we still can't afford to have.
Yes.
And there's almost nobody at home. We've got the Navy, which is the most powerful Navy in the world. But again, that's stretched out all over the world to defend the colonies.
Yes.
And there's Hitler, who's just on speed.
Yes.
Pervitine. The whole of Germany, Nazi Germany, was on Pervitine. And it started with the Spanish Civil War, where they tested Pervitine on the pilots and on the tank commanders to make them be able to stay up all night and just keep fighting.
Yes.
So how they invaded Europe was also due to a drug called Pervitine, which is speed.
Gotcha.
Both Lemmy and I are fascinated by this, and we've also been sermonized too by his father, my grandfather, and also everybody around. It's just such a sense of relief that we hadn't lost.
Yeah.
This hero thing becomes, way over the top. And of course, America came into the war. Thank God. Thank you for coming into the war.
Of course.
I've got to admit it was a little late, like in the First World War, where America came in 1917.
Yep. American isolationism.
I'm afraid, and even then, they only really came in because of Pearl Harbor,
Yeah. Yes.
Even though Churchill's mother was American, which also helped, helped that Roosevelt and Churchill got on well.
Yes.
But therefore, you got this situation, which is kind of a strange situation, where everywhere on all the TV channels, etc., it's how glorious we were, how wonderful we were. And it just went on and on and on, year in, year out. Oh, here we go, another commemoration. It was just endless.
Yes.
It was just endless. And most of us, kids and stuff, who were very passionate about it anyway, and we knew a lot about it because we've been so much had been thrown at us. Yeah. And the Nuremberg trials and the terrible death camps and, all, the serious, nasty stuff that went on.
Yes.
And, but there was also a kind of rejection. A kind of rejection of this constant hero worship thing.
Yes.
And we started looking separately, Lemmy and I were both separately, when I was a kid and when he was a lot younger, he started looking at the opposition. Now, image-wise, and this is where I'm coming around to this, image-wise, I was fascinated. Do you make model kits when you're a kid?
I came across them, but I was always afraid of building them because I was like, I don't want to destroy anything. So I never actually built them. I would always look at them like, this is cool, but I would never actually build them because I was like, I don't want to mess anything up.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can't make omelets without breaking eggs.
That's true. No, you're right. You're right.
And in messing things up, that's how you get the great idea.
That's true. No, you're right. You're right.
You got to make mistakes in life to advance.
Yeah,
and
right.
Out of those mistakes, we'll come to the musical side of that particular argument as well, because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
That it's not just copying the others that gets you to be an individual.
No.
It's all the mistakes you make which become your way of doing things. Like Lemmy.
Yes.
Rhythm guitarist who turns bass player.
Bassist. And it turns out to be one of the best bass players of all time.
Well,
I think so. I think so. Honestly, I'll be very honest with you. Let me I'm a bass player myself. I can never play with the pick.
Cool.
I can never play with the pick to save my life. But in terms of bass tone, I think Lemmy has the greatest bass tone of all time. I don't care about anyone else's bass tone. I want Lemmy's bass tone. That Rickenbacker, Murder One, Marshall amp tone, I want that tone. Every time I get a pedal, I'm always like, how can I make this help my bass sound like Lemmy?
You got a Rickenbacker?
Don't have a Rickenbacker.
401? Yeah, they're expensive.
I need one. No, I need one. If I could get that, then it's done. I can get the Lemmy tone like that.
Well, then you probably need to change the pickups on it because
Lemmy, he was a humbucker guy.
He was a humbucker guy, absolutely, and those humbuckers are great pickups.
Oh yeah, they are.
And also the amps and Jim Marshall, who built the Marshall amps.
Yep.
Was also a very like Dave Martin, was at the front line, and Pete Townsend, who played High Watt, and all the bands at the time used to go and see Jim Marshall, and Jim Marshall would say, well, what do you really need out of these amps? And he'd build new amps all the time. And it's constantly improving them. Yeah. And Lemmy's bass sound also comes from the technology that was built into the amps and what speakers and all,
Yes, of course.
So that's the geek side of it. But so there we are, and I'm building these kits, and the Spitfires are all Spitfire was a British plane, a very, very good British plane, but also a terrible killing machine. Of course, it's a fighter.
Wow.
It's a fighter aircraft, and but it's all in curves. It's a beautiful looking. If you Google up a Spitfire, it's a beautiful looking aircraft.
Gotcha.
And it looks really sweet. And it has Rolls Royce Merlin engines, which got
wow.
Sounds amazing. And the camouflage was like green blobs and brown blobs, which imitated the countryside around the south of England at the time. You see, so it looked really safe and sweet and friendly. For a killing machine.
Gotcha.
On the other side, opposite the Spitfire, was the Messerschmitt 109, which is the German Nazi aircraft, which looked really mean, and its wings were cut off square, like chisel toe cowboy boots. They were cut off square. The nose was cut off square, and in the nose was a cannon.
Yes.
The camouflage, instead of being lovely sort of brown and green blobs, was like all this strange. It looks like a python or something. Gotcha. Not Monty Python, but like a python the snake.
Yes.
And it's not a flying circus. And anyway, and of course all the imagery, the black crosses, the swastikas.
Yeah.
Now,
the Iron
please, I will underline in red, and I'll do it several times. Lemmy and I were not Nazis and have nothing to do with anything to do with Nazism or the doctrine or anything which I think is horrendous.
Yes.
And really needs to, it needs to be looked at carefully, because it's a very, very nasty way of thinking about human beings and life.
Yes.
It's not what I condone at all.
No.
But we were anti-establishment.
Yes.
Hawkwind and Pink Fairies were two of the most anti-establishment bands around.
Yes.
At the time. Let's just finish off on the imagery.
Sure.
Because there, on one side, I'm buying all the books and really getting into it, and the SS divisions and the SS uniforms were designed by Hugo Boss, the famous designer. The Tiger tank and the Panther tank, which are two of the most dangerous and beautifully built German Nazi tanks, were both built by Ferdinand Porsche, who did Porsche sports cars.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And the imagery, all of that imagery is something that we both kind of went, this is looking really dangerous. I like the look of this, as opposed to the khaki uniforms of the Americans, the khaki uniforms of the British. It all looks like really safe and nice, and it all looks like the round helmets. Look at the German helmet; it's like all cut off square like that.
Yeah.
And in fact, the year after Motörhead, George Lucas got his designer to imitate the German helmet to do the Darth Vader helmet.
Wow.
Darth Vader's head is a German helmet.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it and you just compare that to a First World War, Second World War German helmet,
I will.
You've got it. There it is. There
I
it is.
will.
It's just painted black like the SS, and he's all in black like the SS. So that is the epitome of evil.
Yes.
And this is again, this evil thing. It's a question of, we were anti-establishment. The establishment had been so pompous about us winning, which I know was relief and all that. I fully understand it. And God knows, with my mother being in it, with my father being in India and stuff, during the war and stuff, God knows I was so for it. And as I say, every single street all over Britain had bomb craters. And as I started coming to France, you know, these towns got completely destroyed by the war. I mean, it was just a horrendous situation.
Gotcha.
And of course, the sheer cruelty of the Nazi troops was just horrendous. So anyway, so there you have a kind of beginning of what becomes the Motörhead image.
Yes.
Which is this, both of us were obsessed with the Second World War and the imagery of the other side, because they were the other side.
Yes.
And because this would shock our parents, this would shock the establishment, everyone. Yeah. The idea was to shock.
Yes.
The use of skulls, the skulls, which I've got one somewhere here. There was the Totenkopf, which is that, which is on the lapels here.
Yes.
The Iron Cross, all of those things were images which were so horrendous to Europe and the world that they flashed up the worst memories.
Yes.
And this was a deliberate antagonistic approach, which was then, of course, picked up by Vivian Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, picked up on all the Motörhead imagery as anti-establishment. And that's only 6 months after Motörhead began.
Wow. Okay.
Motörhead began in 75.
Yes.
Beginning of 76, we got the punk movement.
Yes.
Therefore, that On Parole album, which is here, this On Parole album. Can you see this?
I see it. There you go. Oh,
okay.
Classic.
This album, which has just been no more than re-released. It's a new version,
gotcha.
remastered and lots of bonus tracks on it.
Nice.
With me on almost every track with Filthy.
Nice.
But we'll come back to that in a bit if you like.
Yes.
But therefore, this Motörhead, this beginning of Motörhead, due to our obsessions, due to Boris the Spider, due to the Lemmy bass sound, due to this Hawkwind approach, that Hawkwind were they were kind of space rock hippie band.
Okay.
Right. Okay, in Ladbroke Grove, this seedy place with rundown squats and all the rest of it where we all lived.
Gotcha.
And therefore, you've got, and I'm rambling, you asked me to ramble, didn't you?
Yes.
It's all Vivek's fault. You see, he told me I could ramble. So if I'm rambling too much, you can blame him.
Hey, my listeners will enjoy it. Trust me, I'm enjoying everything you're telling me right now.
You just slipped. Sorry.
It's all good.
Just rolling myself a cigarette. Hang on.
It's all good. No, yes, I do. But I'll ask you this, so obviously when you met Lemmy, you two had a lot of agreements on just a lot of, like you said, you guys had so much stuff in common. So I assume when you picked him up from the airport after he was sacked from Hawkwind, Lemmy was like, let's make a band.
No.
He wasn't? Okay.
Not at all. Not at all. No, Lemmy was a car crash. When I picked him up from the airport, he was a complete and utter car crash. Yeah. He was completely effed up.
Yeah.
Beep. And he was really destroyed. He was so upset. Okay. He couldn't believe that his band had sacked him.
Wow.
Bear in mind, Lemmy had everything going for him in Hawkwind.
Yes, he did.
Because bizarrely, by accident, he became the star of Hawkwind. Yeah. I mean, completely by accident. Silver Machine was recorded at the Roundhouse, where we did our first gig as Motörhead.
Yes.
They were all, including Lemmy, out of their brains on acid. When they went into the studio to listen to the recording, they realised that Bob Calvert, who was singing Silver Machine in the live show,
yes,
they realised it really didn't cut it. So they went through every single member of Hawkwind tried to sing it, Silver Machine.
Yeah.
And finally, begrudgingly, they came around to Lemmy and said, Lemmy, can you have a go, please? And Lemmy goes, well, all right, I'll have a go.
Yeah.
And Lemmy gets up and sings it perfectly. So this became the biggest hit that Hawkwind ever had.
Yep.
And so completely by accident, he becomes the star of Hawkwind.
Wow.
Now, bear in mind that he is living on another planet to Hawkwind. They're all taking acid, smoking dope all day. It's going up like prices at Christmas. And you know that phrase, right? Out of Motörhead, the song.
Yep.
And he is completely in another land. He's got no responsibility for running a band. He's got no responsibility for keeping the band going and keeping everybody happy in the band, all that stuff. He's got no responsibility for leading the band, but he's kind of the star. Therefore, he comes up and does Silver Machine, and all the girls are rallying round.
Oh,
People want to interview him. Yeah. Therefore, the other members of the band who were in the band way before he was,
Dave Brock, Nick Turner, and all those guys. Yep.
A lot of jealousy going down.
Wow.
Of course. So when he got kicked out for carrying 2 grams of amphetamine sulfate rolled up in his sleeve, as he always did.
Yep.
In his jacket on the Canadian border, which was the worst border in the world for getting busted.
Wow. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They've really, the Canadians are very hard-arsed about this.
Yes, they are.
They have good security.
Yes, they do. Even to this very day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Mounties really cut it.
Yeah.
And so in the bus, and I have this from Doug Smith, who is Hawkwind's manager, who became Motörhead's manager, who I'm in touch with all the time at the moment.
Gotcha.
For on parole, in fact. And there they are in the bus. So picture this: they're in the bus. And they all turn around to Lemmy, who's sitting at the back of the bus, and say, Lemmy, you're not carrying anything, are you? Oh, no, I'm not carrying anything. It's all right. I'm clean. Sure enough, he gets busted.
Oh.
Now, it's been going on for months and months and months where we were hanging out together, where often they'd call me up, panic, at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Yeah, where's Lemmy? We haven't seen Lemmy. We can't find him. And of course, Lemmy and I had been up for like 2 nights or 3 nights in the road, and finally he's crashed. He's fallen asleep somewhere.
Yeah.
And they can't find him to go on tour. So you mix the jealousy, the fact that he lives in another time zone.
Yeah.
The jealousy of he's become the star of the band, plus this speed thing.
Yeah.
And finally, we're at the Canadian border, and this is the final straw.
Yeah.
So he gets busted. He gets put in jail.
Yeah.
And they go off to continue the tour without him.
Yeah.
And the next morning, it turns out that amphetamine sulfate is not illegal in Canada, only cocaine. They thought it was cocaine.
Oh.
And they can't bust him.
No.
Unfortunately for them, they can't bust him.
Yeah.
So Lemmy comes out, and they call up Nick Turner and say, listen, we're on the way to the sound check.
Yeah.
So we'll play the gig. Lemmy will play the gig.
Yeah.
And so they turn up, do the sound check, play the gig as if everything's normal. He gets into the dressing room, and he is sacked.